Hey friends, my name's Stevie Taylor. Welcome to the Gig Life Podcast. My guest today is Joe Accaria. Joe is a drummer, percussionist, musical director and musical producer from Sydney. From just a young tacker hanging out at the bandstand studying the drummers at the Italian weddings to graduating the Conservatorium Music, touring in sessions with Wendy, Mathews, Human Nature, David Campbell, Jimmy Barnes, a first taste in show life with Tap Dogs and heaps of others, and now Joe's the global musical director for stage show Velvet. Joe's career has taken a whole bunch of twists and turns along the way, but it's always come back to one thing, being about the song. You can't miss this one. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Joe Accaria. Cheers. I think we're rolling.
We are rolling.
Joe Accaria.
That's right.
Thank Cross for that, because otherwise I'm in the wrong place.
You came to the right place.
Welcome to the Gig Life Podcast, man.
Mate, it's really great to be here. Thank you for coming all the way to Marrickville.
Too easy, man. Thanks for having me in your house.
It's good to be here. It's good for me to be in my house.
Yeah, right, because you've been away a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been away a bit.
Yep.
But at the same time, we treasure all the moments, but when you're at home, it's like, yes.
It's the best.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, very much so. So I'm sorry we didn't go to the studio, but maybe if we do like part 2, if this works out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
do
sure.
part 2 in the studio.
It's already a winner.
Yeah, the studio's like, if you just imagine this times about 300, just shit everywhere.
Right. Drums
and gear and stuff. And it's all, also a reflection of all the stuff that I've been doing over the last, 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's nice to be home because I have travelled a bit in the last few months. So
yep.
Yeah, it's nice to be here, especially summer in Sydney.
I know.
How good is it?
I know. Today was good. It's been too hot though.
Yeah, I told you we had some friends here from overseas. They just come in on a ship and they're outside like in the pool and we had the barbie going. My wife's out there with her friends now. Just like this.
It's the best.
It's so good.
Yep.
Just doors open. Let's do it.
Yep.
We are pretty lucky.
Yep.
I mean, luck is a weird way of saying it, but I've travelled around places and just gone, okay, and people have asked me, wouldn't you have rather lived in LA or London or done that thing? I'll be like, look at where we are, and I'm so happy being where I am, and I can still visit those places, and work and do my thing and meet great musicians, and that's not an issue. I just love coming home.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful house too. You got it all here. It's awesome.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, we work hard, mate.
That's it, eh?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Well, we love what we do, but we do what we love. So
and that's even better.
That's why, we there's no sort of misconception of like we've got to do something else. We'll just keep doing what we're doing.
That's it.
And enjoy our lives. We're not
right.
living beyond our means. This is what we love doing.
Yep.
So,
yep. And what does your wife do? If you don't?
My wife is she's in musical theatre. So if you see some of these posters,
yep.
That's her picture from Aladdin, from the costume. She was in Fame. Xanadu, she was choreographer. Tap Dogs, she was one of the dancers. I was actually the drummer. That's where we met.
Yep.
Long story.
Cool.
But she's a dancer, singer, come choreographer, and now is the resident director on shows like Rocky Horror, and she's doing School of Rock at the moment.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that's the Jack Black thing.
Exactly. So
Oh, great.
It's been transformed into a musical. And she's the resident director, so she looks after all the kids, all the adults, make sure the show's in shape, dancing, choreography, music, acting, staging, the whole thing. So it's a bit of a job.
Right.
But she loves doing it.
That's really cool.
So, we met in a show called Steel City, which was basically after Tap Dogs, which was a tap dancing show that toured around the world. Stevie's doing some... he's doing some editing there.
I wasn't doing editing. There's a gate. There's a gate on the microphone.
You can't put a gate on me, mate.
No, because I just... So much...
Unless
it wasn't quite like that, but...
Unless it's Phil Collins. A reverse gate. I met my wife on a show called Steel City, which was the show that was written after Tap Dogs, which is a famous Australian tap dancing export. And, in the space of a couple of months, I met Tim Finn and I was auditioning for this show on drums. And she was one of the dancers and, it took a while. We became friends and stuff. But and I look back and that was 1997, all of a sudden I've got Tim Finn telling me what to do, or I'm auditioning in front of Tim Finn.
That's cool.
Which is an amazing moment, and also because I'd come from a different background as well. You just don't know where you're going to go, Stevie. You just don't know.
Yep.
It doesn't if I told you 5 years before I was studying classical music at the Conservatorium, and then a couple of years later I was playing, sold out theatres with Wendy Mathews, and then I'm on tour with Tap Dogs.
Yep.
Or I'm still in my 20s. It was a bit... It never felt overwhelming, but I look back and go, I'd have a heart attack if I didn't.
Yeah, right.
It was like, because you're so engaged in that moment. You're so like, that's it. Someone's called me. I'm doing this, or I'm auditioning for this. I'm auditioning for that. I think that's also as a drummer, and I think that excuse me. There's a perception out there that things just land in your lap. But I auditioned for a lot of stuff that I got.
Yep.
Before I got it, I mean, I actually went out there and I was asked to audition, and I put down whatever it took, like recordings, or I'd go there. Most of them were, face to face. But a lot of the gigs that I did early on, I auditioned for all of them.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I knew that there were other people auditioning for them as well.
Right.
Friends of mine.
Right.
Colleagues.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what the answer was to that first question.
To be honest, I can't remember what the question was.
What was the question?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, we're here in my house in Marrickville.
Hi. Thanks for having me here. Joe Accaria.
Start again. What's your name? What are you doing here? Who are you? But that's even this room. Just look back. You look at there's pictures of the Human Nature Boys and David Campbell and Velvet, all this stuff. I just look around and go, it's not really a wank that I've got. I've got to look around and go, okay, that was good. That was good. Next time we made it better, and we made it better, and we worked on it. And I think that's also a reflection of the people that I've worked with as well.
Right.
Lucky enough to be working with them, but they all work their asses off to do what they're doing.
Right.
So fame is not really just the thing that, okay. I know it can happen, but you look at some of the people that I've worked with, there's nothing that has ever said to me that they didn't deserve anything that came to them because of the fact that they work so hard.
Right.
And they were their craft is as important as my craft.
Right, gotcha.
And they respected my craft as well, and vice versa. Not to say there weren't problems along the way.
Of course,
mate. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's rewind right back to where it all began. Were you born in Sydney? Oh, you grew up in Punchbowl, you told me.
I did grow up in Sydney. I was born in Sydney. My parents came from Sicily in the late 60s. My brother was 2. I was born in 1971. I grew up in Campsie, Canterbury, and then we went to Summerhill. And then just before high school, I think my parents moved to the Bankstown area in Greenacre. So I went to school at Punchbowl. But when I was in year 7, the hard-ons were in year 12.
Yeah, right.
At Punchbowl.
At Punchbowl, yeah.
At Punchbowl. And my brother was also in year 12, so he knew them as well. So, my brother's, he wants to be a drummer. So, I was born in Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah, born and bred.
Musical mum and dad?
No.
Not at all?
No.
So how did music come about?
It's often been a theory that my parents told me that when I was at an Italian wedding when I was 2 years old, and the Italian weddings have the reception band up the back, and they've got the tables and they've got the wine. I was just 2. I was crawling. Apparently, I just ran up to the bandstand. There's stairs, and apparently I just sat there and watched the drummer all night. I didn't want to leave because I was sort of fascinated by his pressing the pedals and then there's this other music going on, and I don't actually remember it, but they told me that they couldn't get me off the bandstand. And this sort of repeated a few times. So when I was 4, I went to, another engagement party at another reception hall. These are all around, Leichhardt, 5 Dock, all those reception halls, which eventually I ended up playing in when I was a teenager. So we could fast forward to that. But, but that was there wasn't any music in my family at all.
Right.
And I've been to Sicily. I've talked to my family. They're like there's no one within generations, like 3 or 4, 5 generations.
Really?
No one played music. No.
Wow.
They were all labourers and workers and farmers.
Right.
And my father came out here because he was a specialist in, remember pebble creating? So he's a pebble creator.
Probably did my pool, maybe.
No doubt. Yeah. He did a lot of pools.
Yeah, right.
Because he had this specialty, and so one of our uncles brought him over, and all of a sudden they were here, and he was working non-stop, just pebble creating, rich people's pools. Yeah. Right. Eventually it messed with his back, so he's not great at the moment, but he's still going. He's 81. He calmed down a little bit. He stopped doing the hard labour stuff, but throughout that period, I'd go and just sort of sit and watch him work, and it was a different thing in the 70s. My grandfather would come from Sicily and look after me because both my parents had to go to work. That's the way it worked. My brother was at school, and I was still a kid, and I'd be looked after by anybody. There was a point, I think in the 70s, where my parents were thinking about going back to Italy. So they sent me back on my own.
Right. How old were you then, sorry?
I was 8. I was 7 or 8, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they sent me back to Sicily to sort of learn the way, and they said, back then you could just sit on someone's lap, or they knew someone that was travelling to Sicily. And you look after my son. He's going to this place. He's going to get picked up from here, and before mobile phones.
Crazy, eh?
It's crazy. Yeah,
scary to think of that shit now, man. Far out.
That's right. But eventually, long story short, I think my old man saw the light and went, no, I think we want to stay in Australia. So I'm glad he did. Yeah, because I've been there a few times. I love it. I love being there. I've got an Italian passport as well, which, I could fast forward to stories where that's helped me in, working in musical theatre in London and shows. Having a European passport is a really cool thing to have. But you have to wait till you're after 27 because of military service. So I still had to do military service up until the age of 27. So I waited till I was 28 and then got my passport. Yeah.
So does that mean, so let's fast forward just a little bit so I can ask this question. So does that mean you don't have to have a working visa?
In Europe, yes.
In Europe, yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a European citizen.
Right, cool.
Yeah. With Brexit, and we're not going to go into Brexit.
Right.
But with Brexit now, if that does happen, then there are problems with working in the UK. Now, as I said to you before, you press record, and my career is changing all the time. I'm doing different things. But what it does do is that for some musicians, it's harder to get work or to decide that you want to go and work in Europe, or especially the UK, because of Brexit, if you've got a European passport.
Right.
Because I've got a European passport. I go, well, I can go to work on the West End. I could play in musicals. I could play drums for whoever I want, if I'm good enough, obviously. But now that that's there, you just go, well, maybe I shouldn't. But the other parts of Europe, yeah. And I was fortunate enough to get a job with Tap Dogs, which we talked about before, where it was travelling around the world, but it was based in the UK. So I was paid in pounds, even in the late 90s and early 2000s, where I could work out my own way of distributing that money in terms of tax. And this is the thing I always say to young musicians, like, okay, you're going to be earning this much money. Great. What are you doing about tax? Are you going to bring that money back into Australia? Is it going to be offshore? Like, all this stuff is really important. And I often stress this to young performers, not just musicians, drummers, musical theatre performers, dancers, actors, and go, oh yeah, I've got this great job in London. Great, I'm going to make all this money. When you come back, it's not going to be all that money. You've got to make sure you know what to do with it when you come back, And we won't talk about offshore accounts and stuff like that, Steve. I've had a couple, but not anymore. The tax man's got my number now.
Yeah.
I'm well and truly entrenched in the Australian taxation system. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
All right, so let's go back to when did you get your first drum kit, or when did you actually start playing, and did you get lessons straight away?
Mm-hmm. I got a drum kit when I was 4, and it was like a toy little thing, and I trashed it straight away, broke everything. And my old man went, that's it, no more. Sicilian, hard man. Like, that's it. You're never ever playing it, that's it. You're not getting a drum kit ever again. I was heartbroken, 4 years old. It's sort of, I knew what I wanted to do at 4 years old, Stevie, which is...
Why'd you trash the drum kit?
Well, it was just made of, it was just shit house. It was just one of these toy drum kit things. I went straight through the
Oh,
snare.
right, okay. I thought
I was,
been watching Keith Moon or...
Yeah. Oh, well, I've been watching Rob Hurst and all sorts of people. So eventually when I was 13, I'd saved up the money to get enough for a kit at Billy Hyde's, which was back then at Norton Street in Leichhardt.
Right.
And I was doing a paper run. I was quite tall when I was 13. I was a good basketballer as well. I'd carry plates. I was working, you know what Italians are like. As soon as you're 13, 12, go out to work.
Right.
So I was saving up some money. So I went to Billy Hyde's, and I remember Luther, the guy that I still talk to him on Facebook, actually, the guy that sold me the drum kit. It actually belonged to Steve Presswich.
Really?
From Chisel. Yeah, it was one of those old Pearl Maxwin things, but it was had this weird thatched cover on it. It looked like a tablecloth, but Steve had just gone, I don't want it anymore.
Right.
The guys, and it was back then it was $400 for the whole kit, everything, 5-piece, and I had $400. I just got it straight away.
Yep.
So I was 13, went to lessons. A place called, what was it called? Lombardo's in 5 Dock and in Bankstown. So I'd switch. I had 2 lessons a week because I was super keen.
Obsessed, yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so you switch between the 2 places?
Yeah.
Yep, cool.
I'd go and have double lessons. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And the drummer in Bankstown, his name's Colin. Colin, if you're listening, I can't remember his surname, but he used to know the drummer from Tears for Fears because he was English.
Right.
He's I think his name was Blas Elias or something from Tears for Fears, the original drummer. And he said, I've got his transcription from Everybody Wants to Rule the World. He's on tour with, and we go, do you want to learn how to play? I was like, yeah. So he was friends with this guy. He had like sheet music from this guy from Tears for Fears. So I'm like, this is brilliant. He started me straight onto songs. He was like, first of all, it was Billie Jean. Then it was Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Then it was Rosanna. Then it was like Phil Collins, Inside Out. Then it was Sussudio. He was just like one after the other. Songs.
Great.
And I didn't know it at the time. But I loved it because I was playing songs of, that I was listening to that music anyway. And plus technique. And, he was always about, okay, first 10 minutes we do rudiments and, so what, he wouldn't even ask me what song I wanted to learn after months and months. He'd just go, here you go. This is the song you're learning, Billie Jean, 1982, Thriller. It's like, yeah, I know this one. And I was a big fan of lots of music. I was a fan of Michael Jackson, James Brown, Prince. But I was also an Oz music fan, like Midnight Oil and In Excess later on. But, Ozcrawl, all that stuff. I'm like, you're getting saturated by all this amazing music at the time. And I'm just like in year 7.
Yep.
And so you can imagine being like that young, going, this is all I want to do. I just want to play this stuff, So I got lessons throughout all my high school, which again, I'm glad I did it because I just needed to be steered a little bit. When it got to a little bit later in high school, if this is what you want to hear, about year 11, I started learning percussion. Congas, xylophones, marimbas, vibraphone, timpani, bass drum, orchestral snare drum, because luckily enough, my school was pretty rough, punch bowl, but it did have, the teachers were great, so they would always expose us to great music. And we do school spectaculars and we'd play with Ricky May and James Morrison would come to our school because we were one of those disadvantaged schools programs. We weren't disadvantaged at all because we were getting all this
cool stuff.
All this cool stuff, And my teachers were like, look, you're good enough. What do you want to do? There was the other side of punch bowl, which was the dodgy side. We were always sort of a little bit maligned as musicians. You guys are all, always up in your music rooms doing all your shit. And, like, you ever come and, like, bash people with us or go and, like, play soccer. And it's like, I'm not really interested in that. And then, it wasn't easy but when they started seeing that we were out of school, at least one day a week going off to do something. Like, how do you guys do this? Like, mate, this is what we've been practicing for, So we were fortunate. We had good teachers. They brought good people. I was learning drums from John Morrison, James Morrison's brother. John, if you're listening, thanks, mate. He taught me how to swing. Like, I was a bit of a rockhead, I loved that stuff. But when he came and just showed me some nuances around the drums, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. And then the teachers went, look, you should go to music school. We think you could be okay. You should try and get into the Conservatorium of Music. Now, you're sort of 16. You don't really know that what's going to happen, but there's this there was also in the back of my mind, it was also that my parents came here, they wanted a good life for us and they worked their asses off to do it. And they wanted my brother and I to have a proper education. So I decided, look, I'll try and get in the conservatorium. I didn't even know what I was doing, Stevie. I had no idea. I just practiced all this stuff that people sent me, and then I went to lessons with a guy called Ken Lang, Clanger, in Gladesville, twice a week.
Clanger.
I used to call him Clanger. But
I just was working that out in my head.
Yeah. Ken, if you're listening, I'm sorry, mate.
K Lang.
But fast forward, he got me a gig with playing drums for Andrea Bocelli.
What?
Years later. He'd get me to play symphony gigs, playing drum kit with the SSO and all sorts of stuff.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah, and he was my teacher like years and years before. So he was hardcore.
Right.
He's like, you know, if you imagine, we're talking 1987. You know, he's smoking, sitting there. I'm learning to play, you know, some sort of marimba or vibraphone thing, and he's just like, "Stop sticking your tongue out," and whack me with a stick, and you know, it was just old school.
Is that Whiplash type stuff?
Yeah, it was a bit like that. When I saw Whiplash, I went, "Oh no, this is nothing. Mate. No, it's nothing." Imagine, I'll show. Unfortunately, we didn't have mobile phones back there, so.
Right.
But I could tell you some stories. But what he did is he kicked my ass. He without knowing, made me focus on something rather than everything.
Right.
So he just, for 2 years I went to lessons with him, and my dad used to drive me there until I could drive myself. Sometimes I would drive myself without a license, but you know. We're talking about the 80s. Don't tell anyone.
I won't tell anyone. No.
Yeah.
Won't say a word.
And then I'd have a beer at the Bayview Tavern in Gladesville. But
on your way to your lesson?
On the way back home. But yeah, he was hardcore. But really, again, you know, you're steered by people. That's the thing, you know. You can't. Yeah, I don't look at my. What I'm doing now as anything apart from the fact that it's all just these little roadmaps that have gone, oh, that person did this, oh, I saw that person, and then I went to that place. And it wasn't until I got in the conservatorium where I thought, oh, shit, you know, this is the real deal. It was hard. It wasn't easy. And then I realised I'd got into the classical course. I wasn't playing drums at all. I was playing percussion.
Right.
Classical percussion. I thought I was just going to be like the drum kit guy, but it's not that. I had to learn all this other stuff. Eventually, it became known that even in orchestral circles, there's a lot of music that was written for you know, ensembles and drum kit as well. So I'd always get the drum kit parts.
Right.
There was a piece called Bonham that was written for 4 percussionists and solo drums. I'm like, I put my hand up. I'm like, yes, Bonham, of course. So you listeners out there, check out Bonham. It's just all drums, but it's based on John's greatest grooves.
Right, okay, that's cool.
But while I was at the conservatorium, I played that piece. I spent, you know, weeks and weeks learning it.
Right.
Know? Pages and pages of music, you know. So, yeah, it was a good education.
And you graduated with a master's degree.
Honours.
Honours, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Apologies.
I'm actually still enrolled in masters. I just haven't had time to start it. I wanted to do it in 2002. I went to Cuba to study percussion with some of the Afro-Cuban all-stars percussionists.
Oh, wow.
And I called the con. I went conservatory. I went, oh, do you reckon I could do my masters in Cuba? And they're like, no, you have to spend at least the first year doing academic studies. I'm like, you know, fuck that. I just want to go to Cuba. So I went to Cuba. I was doing gigs. I had enough money. I could do it. But, yeah, I had an honours degree. So, yeah, it was one of those things, Stevie. I just worked my ass off to do it. But I was a little bit like, yeah, I think they could tell that I wasn't going to be the classical sort of guy, you know. But great training. Like all of my stick technique comes from classical.
Right.
All that stuff. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to play the way I play if I didn't have that training. Right. No doubt.
Right.
Yeah. And we all have training in different ways, but that just sort of focused me on like snare drum technique, doing very, very intense classical rudimentary stuff. And because I was like 18, 19, 20, I could do it. Mm. But at the same time, I was still playing in bands, you know. I was still doing gigs and, you know, I was in a band called The Strange, which was a funky, you know, sort of quirky, funky band that we were playing gigs 3 nights a week as well as, you know, doing studies, you know. You could still play at the Hopeton, the Annandale and the Lansdowne back then.
Yep.
In 1 week as the same band.
Yep.
Because people would just still come, even if it's like 15 people, you still play to them, you know. So I was still doing gigs, and I felt that was like going to be where I'd end up, or maybe that was sort of part of the understanding music as well, understanding the full circle of what I wanted to do.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about Cuba.
Cuba I went to in 2002. I just 2002, 2003, yeah. I'd just done a tour with Human Nature, actually, and wanted to go and I just wanted to go and experience it, just be part of it. And I'd met some people that I think his name is Leandro Mena. Leandro, if you're listening, it's me. They were doing a Cuban show at Star City, which is now the Star City, the old casino. And there's this drummer, a percussionist, like he was playing, the old clave with the left foot and playing timbales. It's like monster, 19-year-old kid. He says, when you're in Cuba, look for me if you come. Like, so I did, and I found him. And it's like,
how did you find him?
Well, I just walked around and asked.
Really? Yeah, right.
I just walked around and asked people. Yeah. Do you know? Yeah. ¿Dónde es Leandro? Leandro is up there. It's like, I'd get lost.
What?
9 times out of 10, but eventually I found him. He was still young, but then he introduced me to some of the other guys in his circles as well. It was just one of those things you do, Stevie, where you just if I'm going to play some of this stuff, I'm going to start playing congas and start integrating some of this music into my drumming. I need to go to the source.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I could have done that with Africa. I could have done that with Brazil. I just chose Cuba because that was what I chose at the time. But that was 2002, 2003. So I spent some time in LA and I met drummers like Greg Bissonette, all sorts of people. It was great. It was a really cool time. But yeah, before that, I toured with Wendy Mathews. And,
right.
I'd done a few European tours with Floyd Vincent and the Child Brides. So it was a total like left of centre artist that was signed to Universal at the time. So sort of in that sort of bit of pop world, a bit of like indie world at the same time. But as soon as I got out of the con, if I go back to like 1992, 93, is where I got the gig with Wendy. And Wendy Mathews was sort of a big deal at the time. Yep. She had a few hits and won arias, and they were looking for a drummer who could stand up and play drums and percussion at the same time and sing. I just said, yeah, I can do that. Of course, I said that not. I didn't know I could do that, but I said, yeah, I could do that. That one I didn't have to audition for. I went to a rehearsal, which was sort of an audition, and I listened to her songs and I studied everything. I made sure I knew every detail, and that's a residual effect of being at the conservatory where you've got to learn your stuff. And I thought, well, okay, I've got to learn this woman's music. I learned everything. Do you know such and such, Standing Strong? Yep. Do you know Let's Kiss? Yep. Do you know Woman's Got to Have It? Got it? Yeah. Same thing happened when I started playing with Barnsey. It's like, do you know Cheap Wine? Yep. Got it. Forever Now? Yep. Do you know Flame Tree? Of course I do. Do you know, that sort of, your life experiences are sort of like studying as well.
Right.
But as a musician, you can't forget that preparation is really important. I was just lucky that I just had enough time to get in there and do it. So yeah, so yeah, it was the 90s was I was a bit of a session. I love doing the sessions as well because there were sessions.
Right.
There were lots of drum sessions. I'd do 3 or 4 a week.
Right.
As long as you got a car and your kit, mate, you could go anywhere. And I do ads for Songzoo and all sorts of stuff, But the touring stuff I liked,
Was there a preference?
Yeah, it's the thing where when shit gets hard, there's always a preference that you wouldn't want to be doing it. But I think I preferred playing live.
Right. Okay.
I preferred playing in front of people.
Right.
Yeah. I loved that feeling. Not because not because they had any sort of. It didn't pertain to my ego that much because I was playing for superstars anyway. They were the stars. I wasn't the star. I was like, how good is this? I'm playing at the Palais Theatre, or I'm playing at, the opening of the Olympic Stadium with the Bee Gees, supporting the Bee Gees in front of 120,000 people. Like,
were you playing in that band with the Bee Gees?
I was playing in Wendy's band, who supported,
Right.
Yeah. So I met the Bee Gees that night, yeah. I saw that show.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that show too. I was on TV, watching TV. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just side of stage going, Blairy, we're watching the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
So, I think the live thing was, I love being in the studio. Like I said to you before, I've just been at 301 doing a new album with DC.
Yep.
David Campbell. I still love that. I love going into the studio and recording. I actually am doing a lot more music production myself.
Yep.
Which is a combination of sampling myself, drumming, and doing music for different shows now, which is sort of, again, that it's good to have that residual effect of being in studios a lot and recording and having people say, no, let's do it again. Like, so, for example, the other day, on Monday, we did 11 tracks in about 10 hours. We used to spend like 11 hours on one track.
Yeah.
And the whole thing's changed. That whole perception of what recording isn't as grand as what it used to be. And I get why we spent a day on one track, but you probably didn't have to.
Yep. Probably had the budgets.
They had the budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't mind. It was paying my rent at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just while we're on 301, did that get sold not too long ago? That kind of started to go out of business, and then I read something the other day that this entrepreneur bought it, and it's not making any money for him, but he bought it and he's sort of building it up so the musicians and the producers come through, and it's given them a bit of a future. Mm-hmm. Have you heard that story?
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand as well.
Right.
Yeah, they're even just walking through the corridors there, you sort of bump into people, and I think what they're trying to create there is quite valid, like similar to what you're saying. The recording rooms, I mean, the big recording room isn't as big as it was back in Alexandria, but still pretty good. They pull a good sound. They've still got the old gear as well.
Yeah,
they've got the same desk, and the engineers there are pretty good. So, I like what they're doing there. Yeah, I think it's a fascinating world, the studio world, because the commercial studio world has changed so much.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at that little keyboard there, that hard drive that's plugged in there, my computer, I could do all the music for Velvet right now.
Yep.
I've got it all there.
Yep.
I don't have to go to 301 to do it. But I did. I went there, I would record drums, or I'd go to another studio and record vocals here, and we'd do strings and horns in Melbourne. Because the idea of recording music is still there. It's important to have the right sounds. I could just do some dodgy backing tracks if you wanted me to, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
It's Marsha Hines.
Man. Yep.
She's not going to sing to that stuff. She'll hear that they're real horns and real strings, but I think these days it's about trying to economize the way you do record as well, because one, the studios were way expensive back then. Running a commercial studio isn't easy because most people can do it here. Look,
that's it.
I can do it here.
I understand. Yeah.
If you want me to do a cover of something, I could probably whip it up.
Yep.
It'll take me a while, but
I know.
Maybe I have to blow my nose and have a good sleep. But you know what I mean? Like, everyone's got a home studio these days.
Yeah, that's right.
But no one has a real drummer.
Yep.
And as good as some of the samples and, the logic, a real drummer's a real drummer. Even when I go and record music for my own shows that I'm part of the design team of the music, I always record my own real drums.
Yeah, cool.
Even if it's just sitting here with a hi-hat and a mic.
Yeah.
And making sure I've got real hats.
I saw an Instagram video today of you doing that.
Right.
Sitting recording and had somebody here and you're doing a disco. You're
Just
doing a
disco.
disco thing. And it was just the hi-hats. I thought it was
Just
awesome. I thought it was great.
Yeah. I'd programmed the drums from a lot of my own samples.
Yep.
And I went, that snare drum I recorded for that song, I've got a sample of that. Nice fat disco, Ludwig, 6.5, superphonic. Even though I'm endorsed by Sonor, let's say. they let me use other snares, but even some of those snares are all sampled from recordings that I've done. Because I go to the engineers, hey, mate, can I just get a couple of hits from my snares?
Oh, cool.
Because then I can use them in my own shit.
Yep.
Right? But hi-hats,
Yeah, hi-hats.
you can't
Get a
program
good sample.
hi-hat.
Yeah, yeah.
You can. And I'll anyone that can program a real drummer playing real hi-hats, I'll bow down to you gracefully because it's all about velocity. It's about where you hit on the side of the hats, the tip of the stick, whether it's a nylon tip or like where you open the hi-hat. The different permutations of how you can open a hi-hat are so big.
Yep.
The angle of the cymbal, all this sort of crap. I always have to record live hi-hat.
Yeah.
Always. And there was a point there also where I was doing some disco stuff in the 2000s where people just come in, they go, can you do hi-hat, tambourine and shaker? That's it. That's all we want you to do.
Yep.
I do country sessions, shaker, tambourine, hi-hat. Can you just do... No worries. And now, when you're not playing a drum kit, as you know, it's not easy to separate yourself and go, okay, I'm only just... So you're sort of air drumming the rest of it going... But that's one motion that you can't replicate.
I understand.
Kick drums, snare drums, toms, they're all single hits. Hi-hats, it's a whole another world. Yeah. So it's a funny one.
No, that's cool.
I think it's always important for me to when I think of economizing, like I was saying, like home studio, it's like, no, actually, let's just get a shitty 57 and record some hi-hats just live, and it just goes, the whole track just lifts and almost sounds real, even though it's not that real.
Yeah.
But if I do have the budget and the time, I go in there with a kit and I'll just book a studio for half a day. It's not much, like $300, $400.
Yeah.
I get to take away beautiful recordings of my own drums, recorded by great engineers with good microphones, and then that's mine. I paid for it.
Is that all it costs?
Well, I mean, if let's say a studio is like $700 a day,
Right. That's including engineer.
including engineer. Yeah, I can just go in there and record drums.
Right.
For half a day. In 3.5 hours, I should be able to play a lot of good shit.
Yeah.
Or just sample my own stuff.
Yeah.
But most of the sessions that I still do, I always get to take away some of the hits.
That's cool.
Like, can you send me like a snare drum hit that I recorded at the end of the session?
Wonder how many people think to do that. Yeah.
To do that, yeah, right.
To
take away their own
take
stuff.
away their own stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you might as well.
You might as well. Yeah, absolutely.
There's no law that says you can't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
What I've always been accustomed to is at the end of a session, the engineer or producer will go, okay, can we get some single hits of all the drums?
Right. Okay.
And they record it either to tape back in the day or to Pro Tools, or so you do like single snare hits, a couple of rim shots, toms, singles, and you go, wait a sec, that's my drum kit. They're my sounds. I tuned that drum kit. This is at the end of the recording. And then I just, casually just go, can you just bounce a wav of those drum hits for me and send it to me? I'm like, of course. No worries. Now, whether that's legal or not,
right?
It depends who pays for it.
Yeah.
If I pay for it, it's fine. But
exactly.
But they will use those samples if they need to.
Yep.
And there's, we're going into another dark area of, drum sampling that maybe we don't want to go there. But there's been occasions where my drums have been sampled and used on other people's tracks.
And you've heard them?
And I've heard them.
Oh, shit.
And I've had people calling me, mate, your snare drum sounds great on that song. So what song? What song are you talking about? Oh, that's such and such song. I was like,
I didn't play on that.
I didn't play on that.
Oh, shit.
But I know who produced it. Or, you know.
Okay.
But let's not go there, Steve.
okay.
Because we want to make this a happy podcast tonight.
Yeah, okay. Good stuff.
But, again, great learning curve.
Yeah.
You know, really important to acknowledge those times.
Yep.
Even though, you know, I may have been paid more or less or exploited it was my choice. I did it. I was there.
Right.
So I'm happy that I understand that. But from a production point of view, it's great to know that and that I can use that stuff
Yep.
for, you know, other projects.
Cool.
You know.
Very good. So what came after Wendy Mathews?
After Wendy Mathews was the show Steel City, where I met my wife, Leah.
Right.
And that was Tap Dogs.
Yep.
I'd seen Tap Dogs at the Sydney Theatre Company in 1995 and went, I want to be in this show.
Right.
It took me another 10 years to get in the show. But in the interim...
Were you actively seeking to get in there?
Not exactly, but in the interim we did Steel City,
Okay.
which was the same creator, which is Dean Perry.
Yep.
Amazing man and tap dancer. That's where we did Steel City, which was with Tim Finn. So that sort of catapulted me into another world completely because these were theatres. It wasn't a rock.
This was the first theatre.
The first theatre experience.
Type. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it just so happened that Tim Finn was the composer.
Right.
So we were just sitting there. He was writing stuff, and he'd be like, "Let's play it," and we record it, and it was amazing to work with him.
Was that here in New Zealand?
It was here.
Okay.
Yeah. It was in Sydney. Yeah. And now he's back in NZ, but yeah, I ended up doing a few gigs with him as well. Like, he was so supportive. I was still like in my mid-20s as well.
Right.
You know. First theatre experience. And I played with... I was in an audition. This guy from Melbourne called Lawrence Maddy, Greg Hitchcock, guitarist, who'd played with UMI, and they didn't have a bass player. So I was up at Sun Studios in Kippax Street in Surrey Hills, and around the corner from Sun Studios was another studio where the Rockmelons had their studio as well. And I said, we need a bass player. And I was auditioning, and then they go, okay, great, we need a bass player. Like, have I got the gig? Or I just assumed that I had no idea, to be honest. Around the corner was a guy called Dario Bortolin. Dars. And he was playing some sessions for the Rockmelons, and it came in, auditioned for Steel City, got the gig, and the band was there. Right. And eventually we toured Australia. We ended up in New York, and that took us up to up till the 2000s. Then through the connection with Dean and the show, I got to work on the 2000 Olympics. Got to do some different stuff. And even in Steel City, I was doing drum solos on lockers and people's hard hats and stuff.
Right, cool.
Where it was they're like, how do you feel about coming down from the drums and doing a bit of a solo on someone's head? Like, sure. How do you feel about coming on for the finale strapped into the back of a Holden Ute? The drums standing up, like bolted to the the treads of the back of a Ute.
Australia, mate.
Australia. I'm like, of course, yeah, sure, no worries. And that sort of opened up this. Yeah, these guys are just. I thought these guys were mad, but they were creative as well.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have forklifts going up, and tap dancers are going to tap dance, and all these forklifts are going to do all these different dances, and you guys are going to come out. The band's going to be on this gantry. What is going on?
Yeah.
Once we were in there, I knew what was going on.
Right.
But this was a theatrical rock experience, with 16 tap dancers as well. So for me, it was eye-opening not only to see the venues and the theatre and the way that these shows were put together, but to see, play with tap dancers where their sense of rhythm was totally different to ours. Totally different. And they can do stuff that we could dream of doing with their feet.
With their feet, yeah.
With their feet. Yep. Amazing. And I'm just sitting there watching them going, how are you counting that? Well, so I'm counting it, because they count in eights. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They look at blocks of 8, where we look at blocks of 4. Yeah. A great joke, I can only count to 4. So I'm going, oh yeah, okay, great. So you start learning phrasing over these massive long bars of these dance routines. I was losing my mind, but also so excited by watching what I was watching, and listening to the way they communicate their rhythms. Because the thing is, like, as drummers, we don't own rhythms. We don't own this stuff. It's owned by everyone.
Yep.
So tap dancers can do their own interpretation of 4 across 3 or whatever. They've got their own stuff. They're even doing things like across 5 the bar. It just took me ages to work it out. I go, what are you doing?
Was it charted?
No, it was all improvised.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
So after a while, you'd be able to kind of get your head around the phrasing.
That's right.
Because
there were structures in place.
Yeah.
But it was instrumental music with no vocals, and it was all original, written by Tim Finn, and with all these dancers. So it was all just hang on. But yeah, gradually you just sort of got to know the music, and weeks and weeks of rehearsal, and it really changed my perspective a little bit. I love that idea of tap dancing, and I love the idea of theatre, but I never, as a musician, thought I'd be in it. And then I was in it, and watching all this stuff unfold in front of me, and it sort of opened up a few things. Yeah.
So once you're in there, at that point, were you going, fuck, I want to be doing more of this theatre stuff?
Yeah.
At that stage?
At that stage,
that was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so after Tap Dogs and Steel City, what was next? Out of the theatre?
Out of the theatre,
yep.
2002, I'd been doing, I've been touring around, doing lots of gigs, and I got called to come to audition for Human Nature. They were, sort of in their, let's say, boy band phase, but sort of going into, changing a little bit, but they were still, pretty big. I was a little bit flippant about the audition. I was like, oh, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. But do I have to audition? And then I thought, stop being an arsehole, just go and audition. And then I walked in, I knew all the guys in the band, and we just started jamming. And I didn't really audition, I just sort of played around, and I hadn't learned any of the songs because I'd been up in Byron Bay the night before. God knows what I was up to the night before, Stevie, but I wasn't well. Yeah. I didn't have any drumstick. I had nothing. I just turned up this audition, just got off the plane, basically.
Right.
But the guys were great. The guys in the band were great, and they took me on. I got the gig. So that sort of went for quite a while. And in and around that period, the boys released a Motown album, went to number 1. They went to Vegas. We went to Vegas in 2009. In and around that, I went back to Tap Dogs. I started working with David Campbell. It's not just like these gigs don't go permanently.
Right.
They're like, okay, this, and there's like, oh, well then maybe I'll do this for 6 months, and then So I was with the boys up until 2009 in Vegas. But
was this during the residency?
Yes.
The start of the residency. Yeah,
I was there at the start.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Imperial Palace.
And they've just been re-signed for another
3 years.
3 years, cool.
Yeah, of course. They're bloody great.
Killing it, eh?
The boys are great. They know exactly they know exactly what they're doing, and they love what they're doing. Again, it's an important thing to realise that sometimes their dream is their dream, and your dream might become a nightmare. Or like, I think that it just came to a point where I was like, you know what, you guys are set up. I want to go and do other things, or I just got married as well, so.
Okay.
I liked a lot of different projects as well. And I believe me, mate, I've done shows where I'm doing the same show for months and months and months, but to do the same show for years and years and years, it's great. But there's a point where creatively you want to give a little bit more, you want to be a little bit more. And the boys made me their musical director, which, you know, from the drums, as you know, it's not entirely a unique thing, but it's not the norm. Usually, you know, it's a piano player or a guitarist, but I was the MD, so there's still, you know, they got me in on some of the arrangements, and I got to explore that world a little bit, arranging things for horn players, string players, band, just like, you know, what do you think about this accent? What if I do this, you know? And I suppose it just sort of came about from running the show and just being on the kit, you know. So I owe the boys a lot of that, a lot of the stuff that's happened to me since, because they gave me the opportunity, the freedom to be their MD. And like, they're their own MDs. Like, vocally, they know exactly what they're doing. But if someone's there going, well, maybe if you did this, or you tried this, or we tried this accent, or it felt like it was a good time to express myself a little bit more as a drummer, and I became more of an MD as well.
That's cool. And then, like you said, there was that time where you thought, no, it's probably time to go. Where did you go straight after that?
Well, it just so happens that it was 2009 that I got a call from some friends that were doing a show called Smoke and Mirrors for Sydney Festival with a guy called Iota, who's I'd known 10 years before as well, so I'd done gigs with him in the rock circles. And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? We're doing this circus show. The band's on stage. You guys are part of the whole show. Do you want to come and do it? I'm like, yeah, I couldn't book my ticket fast enough, Stevie. It's because, you know, creatively I just wanted to do something new and different, you know. Not to say that I wasn't happy doing what I was doing. It's just that it just opened up a few more possibilities, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, I came back to Sydney in 2009 from Las Vegas, and did Smoke and Mirrors, which went for about
different town by then. Sydney, a bit of a different town by then.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Things have changed a little bit. I mean, I suppose that, you know, when you leave somewhere for, you know, 6 to 9 to 12 months, if there's a gig scene, you might not necessarily have that same scene when you come back.
Yep.
And I knew that. I knew that I felt like I wanted to do more project-based music and theatre rather than do gigs, because I'd done gigs for like 20 years. Not that I was tired of it. I love playing, you know. But as you get these little projects, you go, oh, well, that's cool. And it takes you away from that world.
I understand.
So I came back because I had no gigs. So I went straight back into the theatre, you know. Started doing Smoke and Mirrors. Smoke and Mirrors sold out the first season, took off. We made an album. It went to Edinburgh. We toured around the place for a while. It was a very successful show.
Did you come back? Sorry, if I missed it, I apologise. Yeah. Did you come back as the MD, or you came back as a member of the?
Came back as a drummer.
As a drummer.
Yeah,
yep. Cool. Yep.
Yeah. Drummer, percussionist.
Yep.
I've always had percussion on the kit, even if it's a couple of congas, a little Roland SPD, or you know what I mean, like just have some sounds, you know.
Yep.
Not that I get bored. It's just it's good to. I want to sort of express things in a certain way and have access to sounds.
Yep.
Because if I feel that they're required, I'll do it. If they're over the top, then someone tell me that it's over the top. It's good to be directed. As a musical director, I love to be directed by another musical director.
Right.
Love it. I have no problems with that at all. I love it. I learn. But I also respect that it's the vision of a whole bunch of people. It's not about you as a musician. It's not about you as a drummer. Sure, we love playing drums, and sure, we're the loudest thing on stage, but this is an extension of the vision of these people, or that person, or that theatre show, or that director and that lighting designer, the costumes, the you know, all this stuff has to come into place for something to happen. You can go and see a show, Stevie, I'm sure you have, where the band's rocking, but the lights are shit. You go, what? You walk out going, the lights were terrible. You don't go walk out going, the band was great, but the lights were terrible. You could say that, but you're already tarnished. Like, all these things need to work together. And I think I learned that, around about that time as well, to sort of sit back and go, okay, you know what? I'm the drummer again. Mm-hmm. I can creatively do things because I'm in an environment that is harnessing everyone's sort of creative input, and I like that. What would you do? What, just do something, or can you make it sound like this, or can you just try one of those things that you did before? Like, it's not necessarily scripted, but right. You're open to it as well. And I think that I was sort of craving that, and that sort of helped me along the way a bit.
I'll just go back a little bit when you mentioned the Roland SPD. The first time you came onto my radar, first time I sort of found out who you were, and then I was looking for a electronic drum kit because the band I was playing at the time, the boss of the band wanted to play some venues where we had to sort of be quiet. So I started looking around for some E-kits,
right.
And was researching Roland, and you're fucking everywhere. YouTube Roland, and there's the Joe Accaria guy demoing this and demoing that, and I just want to say that's how you first sort of came onto my radar.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And you still associated with Roland?
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
Again, it's one of those things that opened my eyes a little bit to. I always loved electronic sounds, triggering. We'd done some of that stuff in Tap Dogs as well, but it's like I started getting into a lot more of that stuff with Roland. And once I started using some of their gear, they approached me and went, look, do you want to use some other stuff? I'm like, shit, yeah.
Yeah.
And they would start giving me prototypes of stuff.
Oh,
and
cool.
I'd get stuff before they were in full production. And do you want to start recording some private videos of you learning how to use the stuff, and we'll send it back to Japan? I'm like, sure. And I was learning how to use the stuff as well. So no doubt that was a bit of a game changer. Yeah, again, it felt natural, but it sort of opened things up a little bit. So I started using a lot more triggers, a lot more pads, SPD-SX, Roland Hand Sonic, the HPD 20. I've got now I've got looper pedals. I've got little TM2 sampler thing, like all sorts of stuff. Where I just go, I just want a orchestral bass drum on my floor tom.
Yep.
For that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned how to trigger things by foot and all that sort of stuff. But those guys were also very, very open. And Simon Ayton, if you're listening, Simon, thank you, was always going, mate, can you just come and demo this thing? I go, I have no idea how to use it. Like, that's the point. The point is we want to see someone learning how to use something for the first time, or what they've done after using something for a certain amount of time.
Right.
And that's what I was attracted to that as well. And I sort of started integrating some of that stuff in my drumming and other shows as well.
Yeah. So after the show you were doing with Iota, what sort of came about after that?
After Smoke and Mirrors, we did a few tours for about 2 or 3 years. It was quite busy. Actually, we went to Edinburgh Festival. It was amazing, playing in front of in Spiegel tents, and it was really quite intense touring. We were doing 8 shows a week. So this is the
matinee stuff as well.
Matinee stuff. Yep. Well, yeah, matinees as in you do a show at like
lunchtime.
No, you do a show at 6:30.
Oh, right.
And then you do another one at 9:30.
Two nighttime shows.
Yeah, yeah. More theatre, let's say musical theatre shows would do a matinee at like 1 p.m.
Yep.
And then they'll do the show at 7:30, all right?
Yep.
We would do like, 2 shows in a night.
Okay.
So we wouldn't call them matinees. We just call 2 show nights. Double show nights.
Double header.
Double header,
Yep.
yeah. So, yeah, you'd get people like, 6 or 7, and then you'd get the rowdy crowd at 9:30. Even... and we'll talk about Velvet, but I remember doing
please.
Velvet in Edinburgh where we were doing a show at 11:30 p.m. Because the sun doesn't go down until 9:30, 10 anyway, so it's not dark.
Right.
It's not really that dark in a tent, so the sun's still coming in, so you do a late show as well. So, it was good to interact with those creative types, and also I met a director called Craig Eilert, who directed Smoke and Mirrors, and then called me up about 5 years ago about a show called Velvet, where he said, "Mate, I want you to have a look at this song list I've got. I've got these songs, and I'm thinking about a show, like a stage show, like a theatre show, or an immersive theatre show, something in the round or in a tent, like thinking about a show." So we started talking, and he showed me some songs. He went, Marsha Hines is going to be in it. I went, oh, great. Disco, Marsha Hines. What do you want me to do? He said, I want you to be the musical director, and I also want you to produce the soundtrack for it as well. Produce the music. Because it was going to be those shows that have predominantly track music, but with a live musician. It's sort of built around, Studio 54 in New York sort of thing, where it's DJs, all that music. And it just sort of opened up my mind to this whole world of disco stuff, and I started listening to Nile Rodgers and Chic, and man, we're talking some serious musicians, Tony Thompson on drums and stuff like that. And these guys used to go to New York Studio 54 with like a freshly pressed vinyl and go play our song, So Craig had this idea of building this show around Marsha called Velvet. So he also said, do you want to be in it? Do you want to be in the show? I think you should play this DJ character that plays drums as well. I'm like, of course. Little did I know that I had to produce the soundtrack as well, and MD the show, and do the vocal arrangements, do all the, record everything. But in essence, it became, it was almost like an album project. So I was just producing an album of great disco songs with a great singer like Marsha Hines. It just so happened that we were doing it live. And they decided to integrate aerialists. So people were flying through the air, and people doing hula hoops and balancing on suitcases, and it was pretty amazing to be in that world, to go, this is what we're doing. And we rehearsed for 3 weeks, went to Adelaide in 2015 now, and sold out straight away. I mean, Marsha had a lot to do with that, I'm sure, but the show itself wasn't really about Marsha. It was about Velvet. Velvet was this place that you'd go into. And again, it's this eye-opening stuff. And I was in the show, but I wasn't playing drums just backing a singer. I was playing a character now. Playing a character, triggering music that I'd produced for the show,
DJ Sambuca.
DJ Sambuca.
Fuck, that's a cool name, man.
Bookers. DJ Sambuca.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got that, Steve.
Yeah, it took me a while, like I said to you before.
Some people don't get it.
I read it and I went, Sam Booker. What? Where did that come from? And I said it a couple more times. Sam Booker. Ah! Penny dropped. There it was.
It's weird, yeah.
It's great.
And just to fast forward a little bit, recently I was in Melbourne. We did another show with the same creative team called Pigalle for Sydney Festival, and I came back with one of my hard case snare cases from Melbourne, and I opened up in the studio, and one of my friends Yanya was there. Yanya Boston. I went, hey, look what I've just, instead of a snare, it's a turntable. That's what my life's come to.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if you see that vinyl up there, like on the piano there, like Chironi and Earth, Wind and Fire, and I was sampling stuff from the vinyl and using compositional techniques, and instead of just downloading it from iTunes. I went to, when I was in LA recently, I just bought the vinyl.
That's awesome.
So yeah, let's say life and professional careers sort of shifted in its trajectory a little bit.
Yep.
Because now, I'm sort of the custodian musically of this show. But it's exciting because it's going on. It's going on a couple of cruise lines, Norwegian cruise lines, and I get to replicate my version of myself on those shows as well.
Right. So you got to go and train Sam Bookers.
I got to go and find Sam Bookers all over the world.
You got to go and find Sam Bookers.
Yeah. I think the next one's in Miami, and I think I found a Mexican Sam Booker. So maybe.
Oh.
What's that?
Oh, I just got tequila on my mind. Very good.
It's DJ Anejo Patron, DJ Game of Patrons. That's a sweet as reference. That actually, those guys.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
They used to have this night called Game of Patrons. Funny guys.
Yeah.
They love their tequila shots, but
yeah, indeed.
You don't have to publish this, but I've got to find little Sam Bookers. It's one of those things, Stevie, where I created something from a creative circle to go, just do it. What would you do? You're the drummer, but you're the DJ. You've got a character. You're wearing these like weird clothes. Like you've got a visor on. You're quite anonymous. I said, well, I'd love to. I want to play drums. I want to have percussion, and so that's when I went to Simon at Roland and went, listen, I want to be able to play a hand sonic, but on my body, so I can go out into the audience and play it in front of people, and have the audio triggered by me playing the hand sonic. But
right.
It's just like walking out with a guitar. It's a jack connection, wireless pack. And then he's like, okay, we need to find a battery that can power the hand sonic because it's like AC power. And he was like, dude, I've got you sorted. So he made me a battery pack, a charging station, and I had this like weightlifting belt that a friend of mine, Bianca, who's a costume designer, was an Everlast weightlifting belt, and she attached this. If we're at the studio, if we do part 2, I'll show you some of this stuff.
Awesome.
If you do the video version,
okay.
She built this like attachment. It looks like a little bit of a penis, but the hand sonic fits on the end of it, and it's got a drum key, and it tightens up, and the power and all the let's say the wireless stuff is built underneath, so you don't see it.
You don't see it.
You just see me walk out with a hand sonic, but it's actually strapped to me. And again, it's like, and even Roland, Japan, were going, "Oh, you cannot do this." What is he doing? It's like, well,
hang on, what was that accent?
It's trying to be
Bit
like
Japanese.
No, I think it was like French.
Yeah, what is this?
No, I'm not gonna make any accents anymore. I was like, they would go. I said, can you make a battery pack for the hand sonic so I can walk around an audience and play it?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we don't do that. So, well, I'm going to do it. Full tilt to the boys at Roland. They made me that. They made it work.
Yep.
Nothing's impossible.
Yeah.
If I want to walk out with a drum machine strapped to my body, then I want to do it. Yeah. So the problem was I said that I could do it, and then I had no idea how to do it. That's why those guys came in handy. But yeah, eventually we did.
It's like the standing singing drummer percussionist.
All right. Yeah.
I can do that.
That guy. Yeah.
That guy.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we can audition you for Velvet if you want, Stevie. Or,
yeah.
Do you want?
I'll do the Japanese one. Japanese Sambuca.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you for listening, Roland, Japan. That's when my endorsement just caved in.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning I get an email. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sambuca. It's over. It's a different path, and now I'm sort of, as I said, a little bit of a custodian of the show, just to make sure it's still going. So there's possibilities all around the world for it, which is great.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, and we got nominated for an ARIA as well for best soundtrack album.
Great.
And again, I said, I just made an album of this great music that I'd lived and loved and grew up with for, so many years. So it wasn't hard to make it like special.
Yep.
Try and do the work to do it, And again, you can't, nothing ever equates to money. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'll give you this money and then you're going to make this one. It's like, I'm going to make the best thing I can physically do.
Yep.
To make it sound the best it can sound, because I know what it should sound like at the front. When you're in the show, sometimes you don't know what it sounds like. Ask any musicians. Well, you're playing drums and you're playing in front of all these people. How do you know what it sounds like? Do you know? Don't really. Friends will come and say, "Oh, it sounded great." You don't really know. How do you simulate that? With this show, I can just run stuff, press a few triggers on the Roland stuff, and then I'll go out the front and listen to it.
Yeah.
While Marsha and people are, singing the songs to me.
Yeah.
Which is, important to me that it does sound good. Yeah. It's a lot of work, Stevie.
Yeah.
But,
And so is that taking up all your time now? Or have you got other shows you're working on or Velvet's kind of still taking up all your time?
Velvet's, it took up the last 10 days, but no. We're doing another a version of it for the Norwegian Breakaway, which is in Miami in April, and that's where I have to get another Sambuca. So I'm scoring the show as well, so that all the vocalists can learn the show before I get there to rehearse.
Okay, good.
So we get there and rehearse, build the show, put it on the ship, and then we get off.
That's so cool.
So it's just it's a process. It's time more than anything. But yeah, along the way I can do sessions like I did the last couple of days with David Campbell at 301. Mm-hmm. I've done a couple of musicals as well. I did Dream Lover with David Campbell. Mm-hmm. MD'd a musical called Gypsy for the Hayes Theatre.
Gypsy.
Last year.
I was watching, I was looking at your Instagram today and I was in absolute fucking hysterics watching the little Gypsy reenactments.
Yes.
I was in absolute tears. I tell you what, I haven't laughed that much in a long time. So thank you for that. It was so good. And I'm going to watch it again and again. And if I can link that in the show notes so other people can get a laugh.
Yeah.
At your Joe Accaria Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. If you just go to,
it's very funny.
If you just go to my profile, I've highlighted stories.
Yep.
You can highlight story.
Mm.
Me and my great bass player Marty Hollebeck, who's now in Japan. We started doing it with Dream Lover as well because you're in it when you're doing musicals. There's a lot of time.
A lot of time, yeah.
And you're on stage as well. And I prefer to do the ones that are on stage. I'm not really a fan of the pit musical, but that means I'll never get one ever again, which is great. Thanks, guys. But you get to listen, but you get to watch and listen to these great actors enacting these scenes. So you start duplicating and mimicking their. It's so funny, and we're not very good.
Oh,
but
it's great.
At the same time, it's a little bit of respite from 8 shows a week again.
And it's like you're very, very serious, and your mate Marty's like he's doing his bit, but he's got this little smirk.
Yeah,
like he wants to crack up laughing.
Yeah,
it's
we cracked up a lot.
Oh mate,
yeah.
it was
they weren't the first takes, the ones that you see on Instagram.
Oh right, okay.
No, they're like 6, 7, 8 takes, and there's like, guys, interval's over. We're still recording.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the show got in the way of our Instagram stories.
Fucking bloody shows.
Fuck it. I know. Bloody shows.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I like to have look at things in a different light as well, especially. But there's no way that we don't take what we do seriously, and it's important that we do the right thing.
Of course.
But on those moments where I like to flick the switch and go, okay, we're not working. Let's have some fun, even if it's for 10 minutes.
That's it.
Let's talk about something else. Let's go out on the balcony, or let's go for a walk, or you know what I mean. Like, let's go and get a coffee. Really switch off, because that world is intense, and now that I've experienced it a lot more, I've got to concentrate a lot, but at times where I need to concentrate. There are other times where I just need to relax myself a little bit, because I think that contributes to a lot of stress with not only musicians but actors and performers in general, that you're always so, focused and you've got the blinkers on, and sometimes you've got to just switch it off and make fun of yourself a little bit, Have some jokes at your own expense. Make up some names about your own character. Call yourself Sam Booker, whatever. I think that's also important, but it's not the reason why we do it. It's just it's a very enjoyable fringe benefit of doing what I do, and I'm very privileged, and I respect every moment that I'm doing now. Maybe before I didn't, I think a lot more now that I realise that I'm here. I'm doing what I'm doing for a reason, not to do with anything about fame or money or notoriety. It really, if it makes you feel good, then you're doing something good. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're feeling good at the expense of someone else, then that's wrong. But in the circles that I'm dealing with, it's all a shared experience. So we're all sharing in something. It's not, if one of us isn't doing our job, then the whole thing's going to suffer. Mm-hmm. If one of us is doing too much of a good job, then everyone needs to pick up. It's that sort of balance that I've been really interested in exploring of late. So I'm not sure where it's going to lead, to be honest. Again, it's like when I was in my 20s, I'm not sure where the next gig's going to be. I know what the next 6 to 12 months is going to hold, but I'm excited by it.
That's cool, man.
More than anything, excited to do more, and also to, as I said, I don't play or gig as much as I did, but when I do, it's really fun, and it's a choice. I choose to do it. I could not do it. I don't have to do it. But part of me has to do it. I'm still that guy. I'm still that drummer from Punchbowl, no doubt. There's no doubt about that. It's just that I'm feeling my way through some new things, and even at my age, there's nothing wrong with that. It's great to be back on the drums, though. Yesterday playing, it's a fascinating feeling, cathartic feeling doing it. But you realise that if you don't do it often enough, your chops. I was on the ship last week, with Velvet. I was on there for 10 days, and they've got a house band and stuff. I was going up to the house drummer and go, dude, can I just borrow some sticks? I just need to see if I can still
shed
do
for a
it.
bit in my room,
Yeah. You've got to keep that stuff up.
Yep.
It just doesn't happen. There's a certain base standard where you can play.
That's it. Yeah.
That's good, but in between takes the other day, I was just frantically doing some warm ups and stuff. You've still got to do that stuff.
Yeah.
We're not. Yeah, none of it. It just comes to you.
Yeah.
You've got to. You've always got to work at your art and your passion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your instrument.
Yeah. And I guess with you still being actively in music every single day, I guess your timing wouldn't suffer so much, because you've always got something going on.
Yeah, that's right.
With your body. So,
I think that when I started being more involved as an MD, I think my drumming got better. Mm-hmm. Now it got less let's say, choppy and less impressive, less like, look at what he can do. It became more about the music.
About the song, yeah.
Yeah. And that's, even last year I was in Christchurch with Rob Hurst. I went to see Midnight Oil in Christchurch. We were doing Velvet. We had a night off on there. Like, Rob Hurst is one of my all-time favourite musicians, not just drummers, right? And he said, I said to him, mate, you're still powering. You're like, there's nothing, you haven't lost anything. So, well, it's the songs. The songs carry me in a way. And maybe if we go back to the start of this recording, you might hear me say it was all about me learning songs as a kid. That's all I did, is I learnt songs. I loved the drumming, of course I did. But the important factor was the song, serving the song. Now I'm serving my own songs or my own versions or arrangements of songs, and that's something not to be, dismissive about. I got to make sure this shit sounds good for me and for the people all these people that are relying on the sound of something. Not to say I'm more important than anybody else. I'm just part of an important machine, But never, I think I'll never lose sight of the fact that the song comes first, or the piece, or the music, or the aria, or the concerto. Whatever you're doing musically, it doesn't matter. If you're doing something that is musical, you're doing it to serve that bit of music. You're not doing it for yourself. And I think that's it's important to realise that, without being too cosmic about the whole thing. And so we're sort of here because we love music, but music is not just one thing. We're here because we love to play live, we love to write music, we love to practice, we love to listen to other people, we love to talk about ourselves, like today, So yeah, it's we're always learning. I don't think I'll ever get there. It's like, I like to do yoga, so I'm never gonna master it. I'm never gonna get to a point where, I've got it. See you later. See you guys. Music's the same. You're never gonna go, okay, guys, I'm ready to check out. I got it. Yeah. I'll call my friends up and go. If someone calls me up and go, hey mate, listen, I've got it. I found the the chalice. I find the fountain of musical youth. It's like, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Always striving and learning. But yeah, I don't want this to sound like advice, but never discount anything. Yep. If something comes across, you go, just go, no, I'm never going to do that. I did that for a couple of things and ended up doing them anyway. So, job done.
Right,
yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
I think we've still got plenty more to talk about.
Okay.
But that'll be part 2, I think.
All right.
It was an absolute pleasure sitting with you today, Joe, and hearing you talk about your career and your life and stuff. And thanks for being on the podcast. And I definitely wish you all the best for the next 12 months and beyond. And look forward to talking to you.
Thanks, Stevie. Thanks for coming over.
Too easy, man.
And thanks for doing this. I think it's great that you're talking to people of our ilk and that have been in the business for a while.
I think it's important that I've said this before, that you guys get your stories out there. I'll keep doing it.
Good on you.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. Everyone's unique.
I totally will. And like I said, we've all got a story. So.
That's right. There's no blueprint to what we do.
Yeah.
If I can help people as well, I think it's important. I think it's a different business, without going into it too much. And that's why it's I've sort of almost, without unconsciously knowing, that I've expanded my horizons without knowing it, because I have to. Maybe that's the sort of, the inner, the breadwinner, you've got to keep doing what you're doing. But I don't think that way. I just think that I'm very fortunate to be around some really interesting people as well. But to be able to talk to you about it is great. And thanks for coming, man.
Sweet as. Thank you, Joe.
All right, man.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
Later, man.
All right.